the last section, we did a little bit of testing of our form, only to find out that if we did not touch the picker at all, the shift would come up as undefined. So why would that be? Why is shift coming up as undefined, but it appears that everything else on here is working correctly? Remember, the state of our form is being held by our employee form reducer. By default, the employee form reducer does not have a starting or initial value for any element in the form. It has an empty string, but essentially doesn't really have anything. The picker itself visually defaults to being Monday, right? So like when we logged in and looked at that form, the picker appears to be on Monday by default, but that is just the visual behavior of that picker. It's not actually selecting Monday for us, it's just defaulting to that value. So even though it looks like, oh yeah, we've got Monday selected here, I have a shift of Monday, we are never actually making any change or calling any action creator inside our application to update this shift value inside of our reducer to be Monday. So that's essentially what's happening here. We think that the value is being set, but we never actually update the reducer to say, hey, it should be Monday. Now, of course, if I change the reducer, if I change the picker right here, that will initiate a change. That will call an action creator, right? Because we set all that stuff up. And then shift will be set to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it might be. But if a user opens up the form, does not touch the shift, does not touch the picker at all, it's going to stay as just empty string. By the way, just to be really clear, I probably made a little bit of a stated the wrong thing. I said in the last section that shift was coming up as undefined. In fact, it was really empty string. That was probably a little bit of a verbal typo on my side. So it would be more correct to say shift is empty string and not undefined when we console log it. Anyways, there's definitely more than one way to solve this problem right here. Definitely more than one way. So I'm going to throw out a couple different ways in here. I don't personally feel very strongly about any one solution. So I'm going to suggest a solution, but if there's one that sounds better to you, then absolutely go for it. Okay, all these solutions I'm going to outline, I think, are all reasonable solutions. So the first solution that I might do is inside the reducer, I have this initial state object right here. I could, instead of defaulting shift to empty string, I could default it to Monday. So that means that when this form is first rendered, I will have a shift of Monday set. If the user does not touch the picker, then no problem. We've got a shift of Monday in there by default. Everything's good to go. The one downside to this approach right here that I'm going to mention is that it really does, however, it really tightly couples the options in the picker, like the days of the week, to this reducer right here. So if you, for some reason, end up changing the picker options to like hours of the day instead of actual days, well, then you're going to have to update that in both the picker file, the actual form, and the reducer here. So a very small con, but yeah, I am going to mention that as being a con. So I'm not going to go with that path, so I'm going to leave shift as empty string right here. The second option that we could do is to add a component will mount inside of our employee create form. And as soon as this component is mounted to the DOM, or excuse me, not the DOM, but mounted on the device, as soon as it is rendered, we can call the action creator manually and say, hey, let's make sure that we default the value of shift to be Monday, or whatever we might want to default it to be. So that's definitely another valuable option if you want to go that path as well. The final option, and I think what we're going to do in here, because it involves the probably the least amount of code besides the reducer solution, is if we call the action creator employee create right here, we can default the value of shift. Okay, so we can just say if a shift is not set, then by default use Monday. I think that's reasonably clear. It makes sure that when we call the action creator itself, there's an actual value in there. Of course, the other option could be in the action creator itself, we could include a shift. That's also an option. We can default the value of shift. Again, there's a lot of different approaches here. I'm just going to arbitrarily pick this one. So I'm going to say when we call employee create, if a shift is not provided, then use Monday, like so. So for the shift key, use either the shift that has been set by the form, or if one is not set, default it to Monday. Now the one thing that we got to be really aware of here, we're exploiting a little bit of a workaround, you might say, in JavaScript. We are counting on the fact that our reducer produces shift as a empty string by default, which is a falsy value in JavaScript. So if I say, over here, let's do a quick example. If I say empty string or Monday, the return result will be Monday. So we're really exploiting a little loophole in JavaScript right here. It is not the clearest thing in the world, so it's a little bit of a rough spot. We might come up with a better solution here. Okay, long lecture there. I know, really long lecture, but I think you get the idea now. By default, our picker should always have a value set to it. So the next thing we have to do is make sure that whenever our employee create action creator is called, we actually save this thing off to Firebase. Okay, we actually have to save this thing off to Firebase. Let's take a quick break, come back in the next section, and do that actual save process.